Hey there, welcome back to Construction Executives Live. I'm your host, Jeremy Owens, owner and founder of US Construction Zone and Three Generations Improvements out in Northern California, where we're hot and it doesn't look like we're going back. So, 90s for us. I hope you guys are all doing great. Thanks for being here. We have another great show for you today. Before we get into that, I wanted to mention a couple things. Some of you may have seen some emails and some YouTube videos come out regarding our partnership with the Contractor Huddle and the team of brands Build 12 and QBVR. We're partnering with them because they are providing valuable services for contractors, and we're trying to link up with as many people who are doing that as possible. So if you have a product or service, or if you're using a product or service that is really helping you with your contracting business get to the next level, please reach out to me at jeremy@usconstructionzone.com. And I'd like to kind of take a look at the product or service and see if it's something that we can add to our store. In our store, we're adding products, but we're also adding services. And we're really wanting to do our best to help you with your business, whether that's getting over a hurdle or whether that's getting to the next level in your business. I want to be able to provide those resources for you. Also, with just professionals and networking in general. If you have a need, let me know. I typically, if it's not me that I know somebody that knows somebody, and that's kind of the name of the game for us. So, thanks again for being here. Our show today is going to be a good one. It's really important for me as well because I have struggled with this in my business. So I'm really excited to kind of get going with this title today, which is Paving Your Retirement Path with Acquisitions for Effortless Prosperity. You know, construction professionals face unique challenges in retirement preparedness. However, by harnessing the power of strategic acquisitions, you can multiply your business value by 20 in just 5 years. Discover unconventional methods to bolster your income and seamlessly prepare for retirement while spending more time with your friends and family. And we have a speaker that is a master in this space. Patrick Rogers is an experienced entrepreneur, cutting his teeth in the property management industry. After a couple acquisitions and a successful exit, Patrick then spent 15 years consulting 7- and 8-figure CEOs on everything from scaling the business to culture development and strategy. He is now a mergers and acquisitions growth consultant and helps CEOs double their business every year through a comprehensive turnkey acquisition strategy. He lives in Newport Beach, which is one of my favorite places to visit. He has 2 children. His son is 23 and a civil engineer and SFO, and his daughter is 21 and living with him in Newport Beach. Patrick is a voracious reader, recreational athlete, outdoor enthusiast for all things nature, and country rock and fusion guitar vocalist. I don't know how you get to all of those hobbies. That's another question I'm going to have for you, but please help me welcome Patrick Rogers. Thank you for being here, Patrick.
Jeremy, thanks for having me, man. Great to be here.
Yeah, awesome. So tell us a little bit about your background. How did you get kind of started in this merger and acquisition space?
Yeah, it's really a long story. It goes back to, I was an officer in the Navy, and I was actually a nuclear engineer. So I used to, my kids glow at night, but I got out and I got into the engineering space, and I went into corporate America. As a sales management for selling chemicals to power plants across the United States. And so rose quickly through that. But after 15 years of that, it was great. It was very rewarding. I realized that, you're not going to get wealthy working for the man, right? Very, very few people do. So started doing side hustles in real estate, flipping houses, and it led to a property management opportunity. I bought the company and grew very, very quickly, learned how to do sales and marketing on that side of things. I'm an engineer, so I can figure out SEO and all this other stuff. And we ended up acquiring another company and grew that. And what happened was I gave a speech at actually the National Association of Residential Property Managers on how I was able to grow so quickly through acquisitions and through SEO and marketing. And literally overnight, I had about 25 business owners that wanted me to coach and consult them. And so that got me into consulting. I realized, I enjoy this a lot more, helping other people achieve freedom.
Right.
And so I dove headfirst into that, and I actually sold off the company because I was making more within a week from the property management. So pretty eye opening.
Yeah.
And then over the years, I've been doing that for a long time, is helping other CEOs grow organically, and I love it. It's very rewarding. But I helped a few of my clients do a couple acquisitions,
Mhm.
and started realizing that this is how you generate true wealth, right? I mean, it's one thing to have a company that grows 10, 15, 20%. And when you're smaller too, when you're a $1 million company, 500,000 $1 million company, $2 million company, you can achieve 50% growth. You can double every year in organic growth. That's very possible. But once you start getting to 4 or 5 million,
Yeah.
you're not going to double every year. I mean, and if you are, you're an anomaly, especially getting to 10 to 20 million. But guess what? In acquisitions, you can double every year at 10, 20, 40, 50 million, right? So that's really how I got into it, is when I started realizing that, it's good to grow at 10, 15%,
Sure.
but it's not going to turn the needle as fast as doing it through acquisitions,
Right.
extremely fast.
Yeah, and the crazy thing too with my business too is like, hey, growing 15%, great, but costs and everything with our business,
Oh,
especially regulation. I mean,
yeah.
business in California, don't get me started. It, you
That's a whole nother podcast.
you almost have to go 30 just to keep up with all the crap, and that's difficult for a lot of us to manage. We're not on top of every single piece of legislation that comes out, or every single tax change or insurance change, but dang if they're not coming fast and furious right now.
Yeah, I mean, and you hit the nail on the head. What does it take to grow a company? You want to double in revenue. Okay, cool. You want to take your company to 5 to 10 million. Well, what is really required to do that? Well, geez, I'm probably gonna have to hire a new salesperson, gonna have to hire the sales team, gonna have to expand.
Yeah.
What other kind of equipment? I'm gonna have to buy 7 new trucks. I'm gonna have to do this. I'm gonna have to buy bring on an operations manager, train them, set up all these systems, processes, which every good company should have anyways, right? But or you could just buy another company, and maybe that company has that stuff already set up, right? That
Right.
kind of thing.
Yeah, so I wanted to know a little bit more about, you were a naval officer, so first, thank you for your service. Appreciate you
Absolutely.
doing that. Tell us a little bit about what that experience was like for you. I'm assuming as a young man, and like how that has kind of helped you in your career now.
Oh man, just amazing. I was a 23-year-old kid, responsible for 60 people in my organization, 60 people in my division, and responsible for 550 megawatts of awesome nuclear power. It was, it's interesting, right? When you're going through it, it's all you know.
Sure.
So it's all you know, and you
Yeah.
just do it, right? And you're in the system, and that's all you know. Looking back, now that I'm a 48-year-old man, looking back and seeing what I had as a 23-year-old man, the leadership that I learned. Again, you don't know what you
Sure.
know or have until you look back, and I can really appreciate it because that's all I knew. But
Right.
looking back, I'm like, wow, I was 23 years old. I was in charge of 60 people. I was learning leadership and management skill sets and things that have just been absolutely priceless for me, and helped me throughout my life. I mean, what I've learned from some of my commanding officers and managers has just been fantastic.
Yeah, it's always crazy. I mean, it's the same with athletics. I'd like to ask you about that too. I mean, a lot of high level athletes that I interview that are college athletes, D1, whatever, and it's like it's strange that same thing. They just go like, "Hey, I didn't know how it was building me into a leader,
Right.
but crap,
Yeah,
it did." And being a leader on a team, and it's just crazy what our younger things do to our older careers and how they kind of help us set it up.
totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. So you work a lot with contractors in the service industry around the country. And why do you think our industry struggles so much in terms of succession planning, retirement, and really selling at the end of their business as well? Has been such a huge kind of hot topic right now.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, contractors, my experience with most contractors, especially that are the baby boomers, old school mindset, right? And old school mindset is we do the way the things that we've done them, and we're not really going to change. So there's sometimes change is not really the first thing on their mind. And so old school business a lot of times is I have my business and I run my business and that's it, right? We kind of have blinders on, and
Sure.
that's all I know, right?
Sure.
And so when someone who's going through and working on that business and growing it, they're not thinking about things like acquisitions. So
Right.
that's all they know,
Right.
right? It's kind of the same thing. Like when I was an ensign or a butter bar in the military, that's all I know is this, right? And so with that old school mindset, acquisitions wasn't a thing in the 60s and 70s. I
Yeah.
mean, not really. And so that's all they know. I've got my business. I'm growing it. Whatever it is. I'm a roofing contractor. I'm going to grow my business by getting more of this. And so they're just so consumed with
Right.
everything that's going on in the business, they don't even think about anything else.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's really easy to get stuck there and get busy, right? That's the
Yeah,
excuse we use, and but it's
so
can be
busy.
true. Like it's just like, hey, I can't. I'm busy, and then crap, 5 years goes by, and you're like, wow, I'm in the exact same spot. I'm still busy, which is great. It's great to have a successful business, but it's very rare to have someone sit down and think about their business in a long term strategy.
Well, and the other thing too, I find with a lot of kind of the old school contractors is they almost feel guilty, right? I mean, if you get a business, if you get your contractor business to $3 to $5 million, by all regards, you should be able to be 100% out of the day-to-day operations. 100%.
Yeah.
Like you shouldn't, and if you are, you could probably rethink about your management style, your leadership style, and everything else, and maybe pull a little bit of, eat a little bit of humble pie, because a lot of times the reason that we stay involved is because we think so involved is we think that nobody else can do what we do as good as we do. And the truth is they can. You just got to give them a chance, give them an opportunity, and train them,
Right.
and eventually that they'll help you. But so we stay involved for one of two reasons, which is our ego. We kind of, I mean, it's true. And
Sure.
number two is the other side of it is we kind of feel guilty as business owners. We feel guilty that, oh gosh, my guys that are out in the field, if I'm not there right with them by their side doing it, then they're going to resent me, or they're going to think that I'm not a good owner. And that's just not true.
Right.
That's just not true. They want you to be successful. They want you to be happy. And part of that growth strategy, 3 to 5 million, you should be having somebody run your operations for you so that you can take a step back. And maybe you do want to go to Cancun for half your time. Who knows? Whatever that is beyond the beach. But that allows you to work on the high level things in the business, looking for acquisitions, looking for strategic partnerships, all of these different things.
Yeah, I mean, and there's no secret. A lot of entrepreneurs, business owners, we do the old adage. We worked 80 hours so that we avoid working in a 40-hour job, right? And we're so many of us are like that. We want to be we want to do our own thing, and once you start, it's really hard to go back, right? So I think a lot of us are in a similar mindset
Yeah.
where we're like, crap, now that I have freedom, I can go do whatever I want when I
Right.
want. But you end up working really hard, and then the retirement piece can be something that slips by the wayside. That succession planning, finding someone to replace you, can slip by the wayside. What advice do you give CEOs? Because there's so many of us that are in the same boat. What advice do you give them to change that mentality? Because it's a hard one.
Yeah, it's really a paradigm shift, and it's a totally new way to think about business,
Hmm.
really, because what I would invite you to do is look at your current business and look at the current growth curve that you're on, right? Give yourself some hard extrapolations, right?
Sure.
Maybe let's say you have 5 years left or 10 years left to retirement, whatever that is, and extrapolate out whatever your growth curve is at right now, whatever your profit is at. Figure out A, what you're going to be at when you retire, and figure out B, what your company's going to sell for.
Right.
And here's the pause with that, or the caution is, unless you get it priced from somebody who really knows what they're doing, you can't go off of what, oh, I heard this company over there sold for this and they're doing this much revenue. That doesn't work, because prices of companies and what they sell for and the multiples. Everybody thinks a company should always sell for a multiple of 3 or 4. Well, not necessarily. You have a company that you're only bringing in 150,000 a year in EBITDA or seller's discretionary earning. You're not going to get a multiple of 3 for that. No, you'd be lucky to get a multiple of 2, right? So the bigger the company, the bigger the multiples and all this kind of stuff. So really, find out what your company's value is and what you're going to sell it for, minus what you're going to have for taxes and debt service and all that. Is that going to get you, plus all your other assets, real estate investment, is that going to get you the number that you want for retirement? And in most of the cases that I've worked with, it's generally not, right? And so whatever that number is, just know that you can take that. If you have 5 years left, you can literally 20x the value of what you would have gotten by doing acquisitions.
Yeah, it's a strange one. So, I'm sure you get this question a lot with the valuation piece. This is such a tough one for a lot of us. I mean, no one really knows what it's worth, right? You don't know until someone is willing to pay for it, right? And it's a tough one. I mean, obviously, not just revenue, it's profit, it's there's a lot of factors that go into that valuation. Do you always recommend that people getting a professional valuation, right from the get-go, or how do you kind of recommend people get that valuation? Because obviously you can't go to Google for this.
Yeah. So there's actually, I'm a part of a group called the Certified Exit Planning Advisors, or CEPAs. And groups like that, what they do is they specifically train you on how to find the value of a company and to determine what are the factors that are contributing to that. So if you are looking to sell, especially, a CEPA, there's going to be a charge for their services, right? I mean, the valuation of a company takes, a true valuation takes some time. You can get an estimate, pretty easily. I can get you send me over your P&Ls for the last 3 years and your balance sheet, and I can give you an estimate pretty, within 15 minutes, plus or minus 10, 20%. It's going to be pretty accurate. If you're looking to retire, if you're within 2 years of retirement, then you want to go find somebody who is CEPA certified. And what you want to have them do is do the valuation of your company and determine what are the factors that you can do to increase the value. So when we look at the value of a company, the value is equal to EBITDA times some kind of a multiple. And that multiple depends on a number of factors, the biggest one being the size of EBITDA. So just for example,
what's EBITDA again, just so that people know?
You bet. Earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization. So it's a kind of fancy way of saying profit taking out benefit, the interest and all that kind of stuff.
Sure.
So it's kind of it's kind of the standard for how you determine how profitable a company is, right?
Okay.
So EBITDA times that multiple, and the biggest effect and impact on that multiple is the size of the company and the amount of the EBITDA, right? So just for example, if you have a company where the EBITDA, it's throwing off 350,000 EBITDA, you might have a multiple of 2.5 or 3, right? If you have a company that's throwing off $1 million in EBITDA, you might be at 4.5 or 5, right? And then there's a range within that size as well. And that range is determined by a number of factors internally inside the company. Things like, do you have, can you pull the owner out and will the company run by itself, which is probably the biggest one of all, right? Sure. Especially for small companies. If you have a company that you are intimately involved, you have all the relationships with the vendors, you have all the relationships with the clients, you're overseeing operations, you're overseeing the sales and marketing, the value of that company is going to be on the lowest possible spectrum in that, because you're going to have to be bought out by somebody that knows your industry inside and out and could come in and do everything, right? Whereas if you hired somebody, let's say 2 years before you want to retire, you've got good EBITDAs. Let's say you're throwing off $1 million in EBITDA. Well, shoot, I would personally take those 2 years. I would take 200,000 of that EBITDA. Let's say I don't grow my company at all. I would hire a general manager. I would get that person trained up to run the entire organization, do everything that I'm doing, maybe even give them partial owner interest so they don't leave.
Right.
But now I'm at 800,000 EBITDA instead of $1 million. And now you have something where it's going to sell like a hotcake.
Right. Interesting. Yeah, there's a science to all this, right?
There's a science to it. Absolutely.
Yeah. So, I mean, you've also you got a lot into the, you talked about getting into the CEO space and consulting with them, and there's no doubt that construction has had a hard time with employee retention, workplace culture. What, and you also have this thing called high performance CEO method. What did you kind of find that were the common problems in our industry, and how did you help them solve it?
Yeah, I think, the common problems, some of the biggest it depends on the size of the company,
Yeah.
right? So, um, common problems in the construction industry, depending on what kind of contractor you are. If you're if you're 2 million or under, a lot of times the biggest problems are just getting clients,
Yeah.
getting a name for yourself, getting a sales system down, being able to balance, not getting out of that roller coaster where, let's say, you close a big deal, a big contract, but now your time is consumed as the owner of the company servicing and providing for that because you don't have proper systems and people set up, and then you back off of sales and marketing. So then you have one of these roller coaster things.
Uh,
So kind of getting that balance. And then once you hit 2 million to 10 million, in the construction industry, it's all about systems and processes and procedures and getting things dialed in so you can turn things over to other people properly.
right.
And once you get over 10 million, my experience has been that now it's all the systems are set up. You have people running everything for you. Now it's a leadership challenge and it's a people challenge.
Mm,
Almost all companies over $10 million, assuming you have some kind of a system, an operational system that runs the company. Now it's a people thing. Now
yeah.
it's, do I have the right people in the right seats? How did I hire these people before? Did I hire correctly, where I hired for culture and personality and motivation? Or did I hire incorrectly, and did I hire them for skill set? And now I'm dealing with a whole bunch of people that are, kind of, for lack of better words, a pain in my ass.
Yeah, yeah, no doubt, no doubt. You can see that for sure. The other thing that you've gotten into quite a bit is you've been a podcaster for a while. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
so I think you have over 100 interviews, which is
Mhm.
pretty impressive. And most people
Yeah,
quit
thanks.
before then, so that's pretty cool. It's called High Performance CEO Podcast.
Yep.
Have you enjoyed that? And I think we all learn obviously from people that we're interviewing. But what have you enjoyed the most about that experience?
Oh man, I've absolutely enjoyed it. It's introduced me to people like yourself. And so, yeah, no, what I've enjoyed, there's a few things I've enjoyed about the most about that, Jeremy, is one is just getting to know, um, the thing I've enjoyed is it's kind of given me this renewed faith in our companies and our business owners in America. And the reason for that is, what I found is that the more money that they're making, it used to be a lot of people would think that, oh, these are shrewd businessmen, they're cunning, they're strategically this and that. And it's been the exact opposite in my experience. In my experience, the larger the income of these people, the larger the revenue of the company, the more kind, the more gentle. And I'm going to speak specifically to men because I think probably 85-90% of my guests have been men, is that the more kind and gentle they are, and very humble,
Hmm.
amazing listeners, very resolute people. And that struck me because whenever I think of that $200 million, or, I had a $3 billion CEO on the show, and I do not think I've been in the presence of a more caring man.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's cool.
Yeah.
You would expect that, right? You would expect, oh, they've been running over people for decades. Yeah, like
Yeah, I mean, you see a lot of some of the, like, you see Grant Cardone or all these other,
yeah,
hard knocks, and that's what we see in Instagram and in
sure.
social media. And the other thing that I really enjoyed about it, and continue to enjoy about it, is, like, number one, I learned so much from it. I mean, I can't tell you how much I've learned from it, but also is just the number of amazing industries and businesses that are out there. Like,
Yeah.
it blows my mind, some of you don't even know that people have a business around. Did you know that there's a business where they go up and they send a satellite up that latches onto meteorites, and then it mines ore off the meteorite because it has some kind of metal that doesn't exist anywhere else. Literally, it catches up, latches onto the meteor, ores the metal off the meteorite, puts it in its little compartment, and then comes back to Earth or goes on to the next one or whatever. And yeah, like that exists, and that's a business, and it's profitable.
Yeah, Patrick, can I buy that one for a couple $100? Can I
Yeah,
do
right.
that? Well, cool. I'd like to get into a little bit about the acquisition thing. So, what are some common objections you get from folks like me, CEOs, owners that, you approach with this system? This is brand new to most of us, right? We've never, like you said before, we've never thought about it. We always think about how do we make our business grow? So what are the common objections you get from them?
Well, I'll talk objections also, but maybe even more so some of the common reasons why they're unable to do it. But and they kind of go hand in hand. One is they don't have time. And does it take time? Yes, it does take time, with a caveat. The way we purchase our companies is such that you buy it and you manage the manager. And yeah, you're going to have to get involved a little bit here and there, but the way we want to purchase a company is such that you buy it so it has leadership and management in place. If you don't do that, then you're going to run it and you're going to consume all your time with it. So, but in order to be able to do that and to be able to start thinking like that, you have to be able to get your business to a point where it's pretty much running itself.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're not quite there yet, I'd say you're not really ready for acquisitions. So that's probably one of the things, or the objectives that'll come back, is I'm so busy with my current business that I don't have time for this.
Right.
And if that's you, if you're listening to this podcast and you own a company that is more than $2 or $3 million, you need to start thinking about what can I do within my company to relieve myself of these duties? What can I do to get out of the day-to-day operations? I mean, you're still going to be involved strategically. You're going to be doing the quarterly meetings, maybe the weekly meetings. You're going to oversee the managers and all that kind of stuff, but you need to get out of the day-to-day operations, replace yourself, and then you can start thinking about this. The other thing is money. A lot of times they think, well, I don't have the money to invest in a company. I make, 10, 15%, maybe 20. And, I've got some money saved up, but to buy a company, I can't even think about that. Well, here's the really cool part about it is let's say you are a general contractor. You're a residential general contractor. Your SIC code is blah, 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 whatever. And you want to expand by buying your competitor, one of your competitors. Well, here's the really cool thing about it is SBA has a program where if you're buying a competitor, you have decent credit, which is 650 or above, and you have good cash flows in your company, they will approve you, or you can apply for the program. It's not 100% every time, to get approved for zero down on buying a business. So buying a company for nothing out of pocket. How cool is that?
Yeah.
Right. And so we literally have our clients right now that are doing that. We have one client in HVAC. We're going to be closing in the next probably 2-3 weeks. He's a $3 million company, $3.5 million company. He's closing on a $3.2 million company. He's walking into, $600,000 of adjusted EBITDA earnings, and he has to come out of pocket. Right. So when it comes from that standpoint, I think most of us here, most entrepreneurs I met, we keep really good track of our credit. You got a good cash flowing business. The SBA it came out with this program last year or in the last 2 years, I'm not sure, but to help with the situation that's going on. The situation that's going on is that baby boomers are retiring in droves, and they're selling their businesses and they're putting them up for sale. And a lot of them are not selling. There's a lot that's on the market. We could go into, a little bit more about why that is, but the money thing is a big thing. Well, I don't have the money for it, but there's programs out there such as this. It's called the SBA Business Expansion Program, and you can buy a business literally for nothing down. And if you're bigger than $5 million and you're looking to purchase a company, we can also strategically structure the acquisition. We call it our capital contribution, equity contribution, where you can still purchase that company for nothing. So we have some very creative ways to do it.
Yeah, that's a good one. So let's use the example of a baby boomer because there's so many of them, like you said. Let's say HVAC, they've been kind of a chuck on the truck, maybe a small team. They're trying to get something for their business, right? What Obviously that's what's motivating them to sell, correct? It's like they want a little chunk to before they retire. What would be an advantage for someone else to buy that business, and what would it take? Would that mean that they would need, new structure, new management? So what does that look like?
Yeah, good question. So one thing real quick, since you mentioned baby boomers and we're talking about baby boomers, it's a phenomenal time right now to buy companies because the baby boomers are exiting. There's that big bubble, however, 71 million of them that are retiring. And the baby boomers, they're different than the millennials and they're different than Generation X. Many of them are already independently wealthy, independent of the business. So many of them have IRAs, stocks, whatever that is. They're already wealthy, real estate. What they primarily care about, and not all of them, some of them need the money from the business, right? Who
Sure.
knows, right? But the majority of them, in my experience, what they really care about is the legacy of the company and the employees. So
Mm,
many times, if we can appeal to that, we can get them to give us a very, very good price,
right.
great terms. So I definitely wanted to bring that up.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what was the original question again?
Yeah. I mean, I guess so. When we're talking about someone who's retiring, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
What kind of management and what kind of pieces do a lot of these folks need? Because I think that's for me when I'm visualizing that, that's what I struggle with is like, okay, if it's an industry maybe that we don't specialize in ourselves, um,
Right.
how do we help them manage it? How do we help them get, or do they just need a whole new set of management at that point?
Well, ideally, there's a number two in command, right? Ideally, that they've had someone there that they've kind of been grooming, or someone that's been, maybe doing all of the estimating. We see that a lot. Whoever's been doing a lot of the estimating, and a lot of times they're already overseeing some of the crews, so we can work with that person, and hey, how is this? Is this person good enough to come in and step in and take over for the company? And ideally, that's the case. Sometimes we'll have, and again, the challenge is that the smaller the company, the less likely that is, right?
Right,
So that's why I say, like, it's hard to buy $1 million company without being intimately involved in
right,
doing it, because they don't have a number two or a two
right,
for the company. Once you get to three, it's pretty well like, okay, there's typically somebody there, maybe the service manager or somebody. So that's one of the biggest things, is you have to make sure that that's in place. So what kind of resources? So again, it just depends on who they have in place. But one thing that is very important is, whoever you do have come to run that company, you want to make sure that they share in some kind of equity.
right.
And the reason for that is, I have a learning experience of this myself. We did a few acquisitions, but one of them we did not give equity to the person, and they ended up like sabotaging like the whole, so many clients in there, because now our alignments, our goals are not aligned, right?
Right,
But
right,
when you have somebody that has some of that equity ownership, let's say you purchase a $3 million company, and they're going to come in as part owner. First thing I would have them do is give a certain amount of cash towards that equity ownership. Maybe they come in with 20,000 or 30,000, and for that you give them 5%. You don't
right.
want to give them a percentage for nothing, by the way. There always has to be some kind of a trade there.
Sure.
And then you give them the opportunity to go from 5 to 10% ownership with performance of the company.
Ah, right.
Now we're aligned.
Yeah. Right. Right. Yeah. Do you see that a lot of folks, you talk about the ego piece, want their name, their brand to move to carry on, right? So do most of them want to keep exactly the same, but they just want do
Really good question. Yeah, they don't really care. They're more concerned about the employees, that the company continues on. I 9 times out of 10, though, what we're doing, unless you get above 10, unless you have a real strong brand in your area, 9 times out of 10, it makes more sense just to leave the company name there.
Right, because they
Yeah.
already have a system in place, and to
They have
bring
a
that into your
reputation.
own brand,
Yeah.
that's a whole 'nother set of things.
Un Yeah, unless it's, like, let's say, like, one of my clients, I won't say the city, but one of my clients is a pest control company, and he has a brand. It's a really nice brand. He's got the trucks going all over the place, right? And he's gobbling up the, smaller competitors in the area, right? For those 100%, you're going to put it on your branded thing because everybody in the area already knows that brand. It makes a lot
Right,
of sense. He's buying up 1 million, $2 million companies and putting the brand over. If you're an HVAC company, let's say you're located in, Austin, Texas, and you're expanding and you're going to buy something in Houston. Well, people from Austin don't go to Houston. This company already has a brand. It may or may not make
makes
the most
sense.
sense. Probably not. Just leave it as is. Involved in another property management company that's doing roll-ups. We haven't changed one name yet.
Right. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So tell me a little bit about, we kind of talked about this 20x, and can take, the value in 5 years in acquisitions. How do you actually create that for a company?
Yeah. Well, the first thing is we're going to double that revenue every year. So let's say you're a $3 million company.
Okay.
The first acquisition we're going to do is a $3 million company. So let's say we do that in year one. Now you're worth $6 million. Okay, that's your revenue. In year two, we're not going to buy another $3 million company. Ideally, we're going to buy a $6 million company. And you always want to buy as big of a company as you can, because a company, let's say a $10 million company versus a $2 million company, that company is likely going to have really good management in place. They're going to already have the systems, processes, procedures. Their books are going to be well done, a lot better. They're
Yeah.
going to have a sales and marketing team in place. They're going to have a sales and marketing growth trajectory. All of that's already in place.
Right.
The interesting thing is it takes the same amount of time to buy a $10 million company as it does a $2 million company. And as far as the actual transaction and all of that kind of stuff, it's actually maybe even easier because everything's so organized.
Yeah.
But it's just going to be so much less headache on you because now you just oversee the company and it's off and running, right? It has systems and processes in place. So I did it. I went on a tangent again.
Yeah. I
I
mean,
like to do tangents.
so you're talking about you're doubling every year.
Yeah.
Uh,
So we go 3 million, then now you buy a $6 million company. Now you're a $12 million company. We buy a 12 million, you go to a $24 million company. You're a 24, you go to 48. So here's the interesting thing about it, back to something we talked about, is this concept of value of the company. And the value of a company is equal to the EBITDA times a multiple. And when we buy these companies for a lesser multiple and we put them into a bigger company, let's say we're a $24 million company, and let's say we buy two of them or three of them at 6 million or 10 million,
right.
and we put them under the envelope of your enterprise company. The day you close on that business, just
Mhm.
like that, you made millions, because your company, your $20 million company or whatever size you're at, is valued at the higher multiple. And every company you put under that gets to enjoy that multiple increase. That's acquisitions arbitrage.
So is
That's
that
what
kind
we're
of like having a rental house, if we're bringing it into like a personal space?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the rental house, yes, in one way. In a rental house, you don't have that increase in multiple necessary by having more revenue. But in a rental house, it's very, very similar, because in a rental house, what ends up happening is, let's say you buy $1 million property, right? And you rent it out, you put a tenant in there, the tenant pays your mortgage. And the beautiful thing about that is, every month that principal and interest is getting paid, every month that principal is basically money in your pocket, assuming there's no deflationary in the
Right.
market, right? So that's basically money that you're making. Well, the same thing happens in businesses, except the dollar sign is much bigger, because you're going to get to much bigger businesses faster. So let's just say you build up, and you've got now $50 million of revenue between your enterprise
Right.
company.
Right.
The mortgage on that, I don't know what it is. Let's just say it's 100,000 a month, right? that, that probably number one, that's like, oh my gosh, I'm freaking out. That's just too much. Well, it's not. When you have a good company behind it, or a gathering of companies that are paying that bill, it's just like a rental in that the business is your tenant. The
Right.
business is paying that every month. And guess who benefits from that? You do. Every month that mortgage is paid, $100,000, just like a tenant is paying your mortgage, the business is paying your mortgage. That's why you want to get as big as possible, as fast as possible, because not only is the multiple increasing, but also it's paying down that mortgage. So $100,000 mortgage payment, let's just say, and they're only, and the beautiful thing about businesses is they're only 10-year loans.
Okay.
Real estate takes 30 years to pay off that asset. You
Right.
start building up, now you have a $50 million business. In 10 years, that thing's paid off.
Right.
In 10 years, you have that's, let's just say here, $50 million in revenue. Let's say it's throwing off 15 million in EBITDA. 15 times, you're at that point, you're probably at a multiple of 7 or 8, whatever that is. That thing's selling for 70, 80 million. You just hold on to that for 10 years. You get 70, 80 million. This is what we're doing.
Yeah, that's fascinating. So tell me, because this would be another objection I can think of. Tell me about risk. What's our risk if we, let's say we're 3 million and we buy a $6 million business and that business takes a shit for whatever reason. Like, let's say they're now they're a $3 million business.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
for whatever reason, maybe that's the ownership change, or maybe something happened within the structure there. So what's the risk?
Well, let me throw this out there. When you're buying a business, there's always risk.
Yeah.
When you own a business, there's risk. So
Sure.
what I would say is that if you buy the company properly and you do the proper due diligence, which is where most people fail, then it's no more risky than you owning your current business.
Okay.
Right? Because
Right.
you've done the proper. So the reasons why acquisitions, I think it's something like 60% of acquisitions fail. Why? Not saying that to scare people, but why is that? Number one is they pay too much. That's the number one thing, is you pay too much and you get there and you're strapped. You don't do proper analysis on what life will look like, what the actual payments will be after with the debt service.
Sure.
So they pay too much and now you don't have the margins to scale, and you as the owner are stuck doing everything, right? So, and here's a fun fact around this. Any idea on what percentage of businesses that are actually put on the market sell?
No idea. 20%.
Yeah, it's less than 20% now. It's like 18% or something.
Oh, dang, that was a pretty good guess. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, what did you say?
18 or 20.
Oh, you did. Oh,
20.
perfect.
I said 20.
Okay. Yeah. So I say you were spot on.
Yeah.
So yeah. So why is that? Because, and there's going to be some brokers that hear this. It is what it is. I'm going to offend somebody. Brokers, it's kind of like a real estate broker or a realtor, right? When they come to get your business, you get meet with 3 realtors. Who are you going to go with? You're going to go with the guy that says your house is worth 600, 800, or $1 million. And by the way, the $1 million guy sat down with all the charts and everything else to show you that that's what it's worth. Right? Who are you going to go with? You're going to go with the $1 million. So even though the value of that was actually 650 or 700, right?
Right.
So they get the listing and it's grossly overpriced. Yes, they'll get offers. People will get excited about it, but when the day's done, none of that matters if they cannot get a loan for it.
Right.
Brokers have this magical belief that they're going to put something on the market for 3 to 4 million, and there's going to be some strategic buyer, some private equity group that's going to come in and gobble it up and pay all cash for it. It's a bunch of BS. It's not going to happen.
Sure.
I can't tell you how many times we've lost out on the bids that we're bidding on because, we got this private equity group to come in. We're going to go with them instead. Oh, this all cash buyer came in. We're going to go with them instead, or, whatever. It doesn't happen. Yeah. When the day is done, it has to qualify for lending requirements. When the day is done, they're not going to loan on something that's a risk. They're just not going to do it. And so when it's overpriced, which most brokers are going to price businesses, my experience, are about 30 to 50% over what it should go for.
Right.
Okay. And then I've never once even come close to offering what they're asking for. We do buy businesses all the time from brokers, but usually not.
Yeah, gotcha. So you talked a little bit about synergistic acquisition. What does that term mean?
Yeah, great question. So in the contracting world, this is a huge opportunity for you guys because private equity groups are willing to gobble up companies that are basically anything related to what you're doing. So if you are let's just say you are a residential plumber, okay, or a commercial plumber, right? Whatever. Um, and you are working on new construction, well, you can go out there and purchase let's say a residential HVAC company, or if you're a commercial plumbing company, going out there and buying a commercial HVAC company, because a lot of times, especially on new construction, you're bidding together. You're gonna bid on something anyways, right? Because they're gonna need HVAC, so why not bid on both of it? So synergistic is, if you have a relationship with somebody that normally, let's just say I am an HVAC company, I would normally like see another company bid on the same project, or I would refer it out to somebody else or whatever. Synergistic means you're going to keep that all in house now, and you can like elevate each other. So
Right.
you buy when you're an HVAC company and you buy a plumbing company, every job now that you've normally been bidding on, you're going to have hockey stick growth because now you get to include plumbing, and every job this plumbing company was bidding on is going to
Yeah.
have hockey stick growth because now they're including HVAC. So imagine, let's say you're in Sacramento, Northern California, and you're a residential contractor who now purchases an HVAC company, a plumbing company, electrical company, a roofing company. You put them all under one roof. Private equity groups are going to include all of that in their roll up. They're treating that as almost like, it could be one plumbing company, in other words, and they're going to reward those multiples, right? Private equity companies aren't going to buy a company that's a dog groomer and an HVAC company. They're not at all. They're not going to give you that benefit of the increased multiple, right?
Right.
Be under the same industry.
Yeah. Oh, that makes a lot of sense. And organic growth, you talked a little bit about organic growth, or, is that a faster way of it working, or what is that
Or
exactly?
growing.
Yeah.
I mean, no, or organic growth versus inorganic through acquisitions is night
Yeah.
and day.
Right.
You want to have, in my opinion, you want to do acquisitions, absolutely, but you need to have a solid organic growth program in place as well. If you're not getting every one of your companies, as you do this roll up, you need to have a solid program in place to be getting at least 10 to 15% growth a year, ideally 20% or more, to really attract the private equity companies. That's
Right.
one of the things that they're looking for. We don't want to just be buying companies and not making them successful, right? I mean, we got to keep our own house clean, right?
Yeah, definitely. How much cash injection is required to acquire a company? I know you kind of talked a little bit about it, but let's just say, let's use the $3 million thing again. What would be a good requirement, I guess, to have? I know you can get the zero down, but in your opinion, what would be a good figure to think about?
Well, yeah, I mean, as a general rule of thumb, I would say that I would like you to have at least 10% of any company that you're going to, purchase. But do you need it for SBA? No.
Right.
And many times what we do is we structure the deal such that there's excess working capital in there to help springboard you into your next acquisition. So there's very specific ways you can structure this to avoid really any kind of capital contribution. But having said that, sometimes you might not get approved for it for one reason or other. So having that money there is definitely a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
definitely.
if you don't have $300K and you have a $3 million company, then I would invite you to look at how you can start establishing a way to build up your equity more.
Okay, got it. So what does it look like to work with you? And I kind of want to phrase it like this. So let's say someone's listening to this podcast and they've never thought about acquisitions before. So like brand new, which I think a lot of people would be in that boat, right?
Sure.
So how do you prepare for that? Like, let's say they're not ready today, but how would you kind of guide somebody in this process to get them to this point?
Yeah, great question, Jeremy. So if anybody is interested, what I do is I offer a free 30-minute consultation, if you will. And so where we do is we just hop on the phone or Zoom, and we dive into your company. We talk about where are you now compared to where do you want to be. That's probably the most important thing, is where are you now? And if you were to retire under your current trajectory, what would that look like? And then where do you want that to be? And then we kind of work backwards to assemble a plan to help you get there through acquisitions. And then so we look at, okay, this is your current company. Here's your, we dive into everything. We look at your P&L, balance statement, all of that kind of stuff. And then we look at and we assemble a plan. If there's alignment at the end of the call and it makes sense, what I will do then for free is I will go and assemble an acquisition plan in your industry, where I'll do research and find out, where are the companies that are available, geographically, size-wise, all that kind of stuff. And then we come back together, we review that. And then if it makes sense and there's alignment, we work together. And the way we work together, it's off a success fee. So you don't pay until unless the business closes.
Okay, great. Awesome. And how do people, what website do they go to get in touch with you?
Yeah, it's Patrick V as in Vincent Rogers, ROGERS.com. So PatrickVRogers.com. Or if you'd like to reach out via email, that works as well. It's just Patrick as in Vincent Rogers.com.
Awesome, man. What a ton of great information. I appreciate you being here. We'll make sure that we highlight this, and you could use this podcast in the future to help your business grow as well.
Awesome, Jeremy. Thanks for having me, man. This was a blast.
Yeah, thank you. All right. Thanks again for being here for another episode of Construction Executives Live. If you have any questions for me, Jeremy at usconstructionzone.com. Remember our fantastic sponsors at build12.com. Take a look at them as well. And if you have any future guests in mind or topics, please let me know as well. So thanks again for being here, and we will see you next time. Bye.